always come back.
Ever since the dawn of modern entertainment, there's always been a widespread discussion over which form of entertainment is the best. Music, books, movies, video games, hentai, these have all been widely discussed because there's a large fandom around these. Now, I personally don't really engage in this kind of discourse because, to be honest, it's not really worth the time or energy, and this kind of discussion, is really subjective. I mean, I'm more partial to video games and music, but I can see the argument for movies and books, and I enjoy all four mediums equally. One thing, though, that has always crossed the minds of these Hollywood executives and these writers and video game developers and musicians is, what if you can take two of these mediums, or even three or four of these mediums, and combine them into one? And it's a lot harder than you might initially think. I mean, these are four very different mediums that require very different skill sets, and taking them and combining them together is not as easy as some may think and can be very expensive. It also requires very tight cooperation between multiple parties with multiple different kinds of skill sets under their wing. I think the most common of these combinations, however, is the two arguably biggest forms of entertainment: movies and video games. I think the most common is movie tie-in games, where they take a popular movie franchise or a movie that's about to come out and make a video game out of it. I mean, a movie tie-in game was quite literally credited with crashing the video game industry. E.T. the video game was so poorly received and was returned so much that they had to bury a bunch of copies of it out in New Mexico. However, a medium that's becoming increasingly more common is movies based on video games, and throughout their history they haven't necessarily been we'll get to it. Today I want to go over the history of video game movies, see where it was, where we are now, and where it's headed. But to fully grasp just where this concept comes from, where do we even start? How about 1985? The video game industry had been in a bit of a slump for the past couple years. There was just too much on the market, none of it was good. Retailers just refused to stock video games because they didn't think they would sell because there was too much oversaturation in the market. But in comes Nintendo. They had never been a video game company. They had made arcade stuff for a couple years, but they weren't really focused on that. They were a toy company. And they come in with the Nintendo Entertainment System, or the Famicom, Family Computer, and in comes its flagship title, Super Mario Bros. A spin-off of the uber-popular arcade game Donkey Kong, Mario was a character that anyone could get behind. He was funny, he was a very joyful character, he was Italian, which, funny. And it was just a very, very solid starter game for kids. It wasn't too difficult, but it had its challenging moments, which makes for literally the perfect video game. Super Mario Bros. Showed what video games could truly be. They didn't have to be high score, go for the highest number games that so many games on the Atari 2600 and the ColecoVision and Intellivision and in the arcades had been. It showed that these games could be an adventure. The Nintendo Entertainment System and Super Mario Bros. Sold incredibly well. It probably helps that Super Mario Bros. Was packed in with the NES alongside Duck Hunt, but even if it hadn't been, I think it would have probably still become the most influential game of all time, because that's what it is. Super Mario Bros. Is the most influential video game of all time. Multiple movie studios had approached Nintendo about licensing a Mario movie, but it never really fell through until 1993, when the Super Mario Bros. Movie released, the first one. Yeah, it was really bad. The plot made no sense, the characters were corny, the story was corny, it just wasn't a good movie. And it showed. It received a 29% on Rotten Tomatoes. That's how bad it was. Throughout the rest of the 90s and into the early 2000s, other franchises like Double Dragon and Street Fighter received movie adaptations, but none of them did good. They were all not good at the box office and received very poorly. It just didn't seem like at the time that video games were made for movie adaptations. They just were too different. With a movie, you're simply watching somebody do something, but with a video game, you are the person doing something. So it was just incredibly difficult for directors and producers and screenwriters to create concepts that could work in a video game setting while still keeping it a movie. Going into the 2010s, video game movies were kind of a bad market to get into. They had a negative stigma around them, and it was really hard to convince directors and movie studios to even think about licensing video games for movie adaptations. That was until 2020 when Paramount Pictures partnered with Sega to release Sonic the Hedgehog. Not only was this movie a modest critical success, it was a major commercial success. It was huge. I really like this movie. I have seen this movie before multiple times, and it's really good. Look, we don't have to talk about this if you don't want to, okay? We really don't. Sonic the Hedgehog made movie studios realize that video game movies were worth investing in. I mean, the video game industry is the largest entertainment industry in the world, and movie studios realized that not making movies like this would lose them out on profit, because this movie grossed pretty well. I mean, this was a pretty good, big success, all things considered, especially in 2020, the bad year when going to the movies was a lot harder than it is now and what it was before that. This movie grossed really good, and I'm sure it did even better on streaming. I don't have the numbers for that, and I'm not really going to bother looking that up, but I'm sure this movie did very well on streaming. This then brings us to 2023. Oh, how I miss you, 2023. We got what are, in my opinion, the two best video game movies ever. The Super Mario Bros. Movie and Five Nights at Freddy's. The Super Mario Bros. Movie, the 2023 one, got a lot of hate because of its voice actors, its cast. It was just too star-studded for a lot of people. But it turned out to be a very well-made movie by Illumination of all studios. When was the last time you said that Illumination made a good movie? And then Five Nights at Freddy's genuinely is probably my favorite movie that came out in 2023, and that's not a joke. I'm not joking about that. There's some contenders. 2023 was a very good year for movies, but I loved this movie. This was such a fun movie. It was so well made. It had a huge budget, and it was just really good. The actors were so good. It was good. If you haven't seen this movie yet, please go see it. These movies suffered the good old critic thrashing because critics are haters, but commercially they did incredible, especially the Mario movie. This is one of the best-selling animated movies of all time. I think it might be the best-selling animated movie of all time. I don't know about that. I'd have to look that up. And Five Nights at Freddy's did really good too. These movies also had a very, very common trope in video game movies, and that is fan service. Especially the Five Nights at Freddy's movie. I mean, this movie literally featured Matt Pat. That's how much fan service was in it. And he says it's just a theory in this movie.
Say the line, Bart!
It's just a theory.
Yeah!
This movie, oh my god, this movie. As someone who's a pretty big fan of Five Nights at Freddy's, I was giddy the entire time. Same with the Mario movie and the Sonic movie. All three Sonic movies, because by the way, there's 3 of them. And there's going to be 4 of them, actually. In fact, both of these movies are getting sequels as well. With the Five Nights at Freddy's movie, Five Nights at Freddy's 2, coming out in, like, 3 months. So, I guess, what's the future of video game movies? Where are we headed? Well, I personally think we're headed up. These movies and other examples that I've given, such as the 3 Sonic movies, which Sonic 2 and Sonic 3 were really good. I thought Sonic 1 was good. Sonic 2 and 3 were really good. I loved those movies. They were so fun to watch. These movies are showing us that video game movies are not a dying art. Video game movies are worth investing in and worth watching. I think that films like this are also contributing to the reemergence of theater culture, which died during the pandemic, basically. I mean, it was pretty much completely dead. Everybody shifted to streaming. And I think movies like this are getting people back into the theater, because experiencing movies like this with fans that are just as fucked up as you are is a great experience. I loved watching these movies in theaters because there were so many other people in the theater that liked these franchises. So many other people in the theater that knew the references. Sure, there's adults in the theater just bringing their kids to see it. They may not understand it. But the people that are my age, that grew up with Five Nights at Freddy's, grew up with the modern Mario games, they got the references in this, and they could laugh at them and get excited over them. One thing that really sticks out to me is during the FNAF movie, when William Afton says, "I always come back." In my theater, everybody got excited for that. Everybody was so hyped. It was a big deal. And I saw videos of other reactions to that scene, plus the fact that in the credits they used the Five Nights at Freddy's song from The Living Tombstone. I mean, that was a big deal. People freaked out over that. I was really excited about that too. And it's just stuff like that that warms my heart as a fan of video games. I really hope that we get more video game movies. I think that they are a great concept and a great way to expand these franchises' brands. I mean, we're getting the Legend of Zelda movie in 2027, and that has been incredibly highly anticipated. And the fact that Nintendo is finally expanding the Legend of Zelda franchise, that's a big deal. I mean, Zelda has been relegated to video games and every once in a while books and comics for such a long time. People have just been asking, when is the movie coming out? Like, when are we getting a Zelda movie? And it's finally coming out, and that's really exciting. So to recap, I'm excited for video game movies in the future, and movie studios, invest in these movies, because they are going to make you a lot of money and bring more people to your brand. That is, unless you do shit like this.